The Pacifist challenge was always my favorite type of challenge because it actually turned enemy encounters into real puzzles you had to solve. So today I'll be beating Atomic Heart as a pacifist. The rules of the challenge are simple. I'm not allowed to destroy any robot or mutant using my weapons and offensive abilities. I can damage enemies as long as it's not lethal and is obligatory, for example if I need to push an enemy out of the way. I can zap cameras because I don't destroy them when I do that, and I can decrease the difficulty from normal to easy only if really needed. And in case you're wondering why I'm playing in Russian, is because changing the language to another one is the only way to make cutscenes actually interesting. The first 30 minutes were just non-stop cutscenes and dialogues. So after acquiring the axe, I hoped that I wouldn't have to use it in this run at all. After running past the damaged vovas and falling down the elevator, the run finally began. When I exited the safe room, I was immediately greeted with a vovchick. I could run past him, but I decided to enter the room where he came from in order to get all the loot and dodge him at the same time. Then I looted the second room, and now there were two vovas running after me. And this is when the problems began. When I continued further in the hall, two more robots became hostile. Ignoring the mission objective, I proceeded to the place where you get the Burov cutscene, but it didn't happen. Then I decided to go into the safe room just to be not able to exit it because the enemies were blocking the entrance. This would happen a lot during this run, and most of the time it would result in reloading the last save file. But after some time I managed to exit the safe room without hitting any robot. The reason why the cutscene hasn't started was because the mission objective was to clear the hall from enemies. Obviously I couldn't do that. I actually thought about doing stealth, but unlike in other games, stealth in this one doesn't seem very pacifist. But fortunately enough, you don't have to get rid of all enemies, you just have to come close to this door, after which a dialogue will play and you'll be able to continue forward. And also here you can see why the game wanted to clear all enemies in the area. With this obstacle overcome, I was really happy. Despite the fact that the game obliged you to destroy these robots, you could actually skip them. I was feeling very good about this run. But then he came. The Vova miniboss was the first real boss. You were stuck in a locked room, and in order to exit it, you have to defeat the enemy. Or do you? You see, this is the only instance where the boss arena exit has a lock on it. Normally, only when the boss is defeated, the doors unlock. But here, if I could somehow stop the boss, it would give me enough time to unlock the door and proceed forward. When I first thought of this challenge, I was thinking that I could simply use my frostbite plasmid in order to give me time, but I didn't have any skills at all. Then I thought to bait out his ranged attack when he's in another part of the room, but his regular laser attack was too fast. Then I thought to bait his real ranged attack, the one used by regular vovas. But for that I had to be in an unreachable location, but no matter what I did, I could not find any item to climb on. Then, when I was trying to pick the lock, he attacked me and I accidentally shot him, but after this I've actually realized that he will be knocked back if I shoot him. But unfortunately, shooting him certainly gave me more time, but it was still not enough. I thought about using boxes and even somehow no-clipping using some sort of glitch, but nothing worked. This was my first and hopefully last time when I had to break the rules. And ironically, right after the fight, where I needed skills, I got them. Wow. After this, everything I was doing was just running away from enemies until the section when I activated the power. You see, after the cutscene, you fall into this pit where you get attacked by two vovas. At first I thought I could just climb away, but they had a ranged attack I forgot about. But fortunately enough, one healing capsule managed to tank all the damage. Also, speaking about healing capsules, I can have an infinite amount of them because I can just disassemble ammo and weapons, but I prefer not to do that because it makes the challenge harder, especially for boss encounters. After meeting Petrov, I was surrounded by enemies, but thankfully I could just jump down the ladder and close the door to the room where I'm located. And I'm really happy that you can close these doors from the other side, because it makes this challenge way easier. If you don't have to open this door again to exit, then it's a pain. But fortunately enough, I didn't have to exit out of the same door, so I just ran away and closed the door behind me. Once I've inserted the candle, I've realized that regular vovas, not only the miniboss version, have a special ranged attack. This will be very helpful in the future, trust me. Now I had to open a door using 3 canisters with plants. And while getting loot, I got cornered by an enemy and couldn't move. This would happen very often, and instead of just reloading the last save file, I decided to implement rule number 2 for situations like these. After getting a gun that I will never be able to use, I proceeded to the storage area, where I realized that these spinning robots damage enemies, which allowed me to not only get rid of them, but also loot them, which was very important, because I will have a severe lack of skills and character upgrades for future bosses, because I can't defeat enemies using traditional methods. And that is also the reason why I will try my best to get every single crate with loot. But I couldn't continue forward because for some reason this bee, instead of repairing all the robots, decided to attack me. And here is the problem with these locks. Freezing an enemy gives you barely enough time to open a lock. But because you have this time limit, you start panicking and making mistakes. It is especially scary when you start to hear the ice crack behind you. Then I found Petrov that gave me a candle. Now I just had to insert the candle and we are good. Oh wait, I forgot. There are enemies in this doorway. Yeah, coming back through the same door is a pain in this challenge. With the inability to get out of the complex, I proceeded to locate the algae canister. The first room of enemies was pretty simple: get the loot, freeze one mutant and go around the others. But the second one was a real challenge. Here were 2 extra rooms filled with loot and enemies. I obviously tried to get all the loot, but the amount of mutants was so big that the only thing that saved me was the fact that these rooms were connected with each other. I knew I had to get them out of here in order to open the door puzzle. Firstly, I thought about luring them into the first room, and it kinda worked, but not really. The majority of the mutants were not entering this area because they were too dumb to realize that they're walking inside a wall. And this would happen very often. After getting all the loot, I decided to take a look around, but the only thing I found were more mutants. So I had this idea to lure the mutants into this room, then run out through the other door and close the mutants in there. Sounds simple, right? Well, the mutants couldn't enter the room because there were too many, and when trying to do something with them, I died. But I had a new plan. First, I decided to close all the doors with the extra mutants, because the loot is just not worth it at this point. Then, after trapping one mutant in the first room, I thought I could freeze the remaining 2 and open the lock, but I forgot about the other mutants in front of the lock and in the hallway. So again I tried luring them into the first room, but they weren't entering it. Then I made a hypothesis that maybe there is some sort of limit to how many enemies can be in one room, so I tried luring these mutants in the corridor in front of the safe room. After some time, 2 mutants were pushed into this hallway, because at first it seemed like there were some sort of invisible wall to them. And this is probably the reason why the vovas were doing their ranged attack, that they execute only if I'm in an unreachable position. With 2 mutants in the hallway, I decided to save my game and realized that this was a very bad idea. The mutants were right in front of the exit and couldn't let me through. After trying to freeze them and still not being able to exit, I reloaded my last save file and tried again. Just like last time, 2 mutants entered the corridor, allowing me to run away and close the door behind them. Then I quickly ran to the other side of the room to the lock, while the mutants were behind, but I forgot about the enemies located in here, so I couldn't unlock the door. There were now 4 mutants in total, so I backed off to the other side of the room and ran towards the door, and after unlocking it, I died. It appears that I need more time. On my second attempt, the mutants were in the furthest possible corner, and once I approached the lock, I got the easiest puzzle, allowing me to unlock the door in a matter of seconds and get out. Now my task was to activate 6 giant mixers while being attacked by tons of flying robots. My strategy was simple: freeze the bees that are near me and use healing items all the time. After solving this puzzle while being attacked by a swarm of bees and 2 vovas that I've frozen, I continued to ride the moving platform, from which I was kicked all the way down by a bee. So I had to redo the entire thing again. Well, not really, because there was a save after solving the puzzle. Also, I've noticed that some of the bees were really damaged. I started thinking that maybe my freeze skill deals damage and thus I cannot use it in this challenge, but then I realized that the lasers shot by the owls were dealing damage to other robots, which will come in very handy in the future. After collecting the canister, I made my way to the boiler room, where a simple puzzle turned into a hard task, just like in the algae area. But thankfully the vovas here were very slow and I could just walk around them. Once the first boiler was cooled, the robot armies were joined by 2 more damaged vovas. It was also quite annoying that some robots didn't follow me but stayed in the boiler room not moving. But I can still always freeze them, which is great. While trying to get around them, I also noticed that you can control the Fahrenheit from very far away, which was very helpful. But the problems began after cooling the second boiler, because now there were undamaged vovas. So I immediately ran upstairs, and when the vova approached me, I jumped down, which gave me enough time to cool the final boiler. With 2 canisters done, I could completely ignore the clear the hall mission objective and continue to the pesticide workshop. I was really concerned about this area because the amount of sprouts that were flying in the fans would have been very high if they didn't infect nearby bodies. But because of that, one of the mutants got stuck in the way and didn't move at all. Okay, I guess that's all of them. Oh my god, there are so many of them. Okay, just push this dude. Alright. Why is he still brain dead? Making enemies not move will be very helpful. Very helpful, just like in the next area. It consisted of 3 rooms. The first one had 3 damaged vovas. The second has 5 regular vova robots, and the last one has a vova miniboss right in front of the door I need to unlock. My first strategy was just to run past them, freeze the laser vova and unlock the door, but the regular versions were managing to get to me before I could unlock the door. I looked at my upgrades and realized that I barely had enough polymer for the very first shield upgrade. So I couldn't use their own weapons against each other. When I was trying to lure the 5 vovas in the first room in order to get more time, I noticed a pipe that was hidden with boxes. I was expecting a small room with a bunch of secret loot, but I found myself in a completely new location with some suspicious mechanisms. After getting stuck and reloading the last save file, I realized that this was a platforming segment, at the very end of which I found a box with loot, but most importantly, it allowed me to completely skip the second room with the 5 robots inside. This was huge, because now I could simply freeze the mini-boss and unlock the door without any trouble. After I met a random dude and solved a railway puzzle. This was actually pretty easy because during the entire time I was on the upper floor, which meant that the enemies could not get to me. Then I burned this giant tree. It wasn't me, it was this dude. I have nothing to do with this, I'm a pacifist. Oh yeah, and in case you're wondering what happened to him, I have no idea. For some reason he appears to be dead, which is quite unfortunate, but I totally have nothing to do with this. But now it was time for the really hard part. I knew that right in the next room was a mutant mini-boss and I had to somehow defeat him. And this time, unlike with the first mini-boss encounter, I had access to my abilities, so I had no excuse to not beat this boss as a pacifist. At first, I wanted to use the ability of the polymeric shield to reflect the attacker's damage back at them, but the problem was that I actually thought that it was the very first ability, but in reality it was way further down the upgrade tree. But even when I sold my freeze ability, I still couldn't get at least the very first upgrade. So I began thinking on how to defeat enemies. I've seen before sprouts just randomly die, but I did not know what was causing this, and I was trying to find the cause of this. I thought that maybe the melee attacks of mutants damage the sprouts, or if they stay alive for too long, they would just die by themselves, but none of this really worked. For dozens of minutes I was trying to do something with the mutants, bring them upstairs and then somehow drop them in order for them to take damage or bait someone else's attack, but nothing worked. Then I proceeded to the large mutant arena to hopefully find something there. Yeah, you see, this guy is dead. And this sprout also died, but I have no idea what is causing this. Yeah, look here, they all just suddenly died. Why does this happen? I genuinely have no idea what's causing this. Maybe it's some sort of glitch or something. Do enemies die of the glitch in the textures? Probably not. Look, he took damage, the boss took damage. There must be something that deals damage to him. Whoa, that's a lot of enemies. Can I just go away, please? No, alright, that's unfortunate. But thankfully, I've realized that the fire flowers deal damage to sprouts. But the problem was that these flowers were only spawning inside the large mutant arena, and they weren't coming in my direction. But this was obviously not an option, because then I couldn't upgrade my shield ability. And yes, I was still thinking that the very first upgrade for the shield was the damage reflector skill. I died a lot of times. I was trying pretty much everything, combining frostbite with mutant attacks, trying to do something with the shield ability, but all of it was worthless. It didn't lead to anything. Then I remembered how in my very first playthrough, when I frozen a laborer mid-air, it has fallen to the ground. So I thought, if I freeze a sprout mid-air, it will fall to the ground too, right? Wrong! For some reason, if you freeze flying enemies mid-air, they will not fall to the ground. But if you freeze enemies that are usually on foot mid-air, they will fall to the ground. So this was also not an option. After even more deaths, I decided to decrease my difficulty to normal, because for some reason it was set to maximum. Then, after even more failed attempts, I decided to experiment. I've set my difficulty to easy and decided to get some polymer in order to see what would happen if I actually had this upgrade. But unfortunately, the results were bad. When the shield was destroyed, it was only spraying combat polymer on enemies nearby and not damaging them, which was really bad. But then, with no ideas left on how to defeat this boss, I've noticed this. Okay, what do we do now? Oh my god, look at this damage! Oh, okay, oh, we got a winner! We have a winner! But unfortunately, I had to reload the latest save file because, first of all, I have to kill some enemies in order to get the shield upgrade, and second, I was playing on the easiest difficulty. After checking that I did not have any extra upgrades and that my difficulty was set to normal, I was ready to go. But what I did not know is that this gigantic amount of damage was so rare that during the numerous attempts I have made in 2 hours, I could not replicate it. But now everything I had to do was to bait the fire flower attack to hit the mini-boss. Sounds easy, right? I also thought it would be pretty easy, but then every single time I was getting cornered by enemies and I could not do anything. And the really big problem was that even the rule I've implemented for this situation did not work, because no matter what weapon or skill you use, the fire sprouts will die no matter what. And the rule states that I can damage enemies as long as it's not lethal. That is insane. Look at all these bodies. That is so much loot. Wow. This looks amazing. As you probably understood, this attempt was going really well. The boss was nearly dead, but at the very end, this happened. Come on, he's nearly dead. Just one more. Wait, no. Do you have any slightest idea what it took me to get here? How much time I have spent in this one room, and now I have to do it all over again? It was nearly over, and I died at the very last second. And the next time wasn't the last one. But this allowed me to implement a strategy to first get rid of the regular mutants, so then they couldn't surround me, and then attack the large mutant. Also, if you want to see the full 3-hour suffering I went through, you can find it on my second channel, where I upload daily Atomic Heart videos. After many more attempts, I finally managed to defeat the boss, but most importantly, that all other enemies were also hit by the fire from the sprouts, which gave me a lot of loot and a lot of neuropolymer that I can use for upgrades. I also tried to get rid of other mutants that entered the area after I defeated the boss, but then when my health reached critical state, I thought to myself that there was no way I'm going to fight this boss a third time. But unfortunately, after all the loot I've collected, I did not have enough neuropolymer to get the laser reflector upgrade. But I've decided to not farm enemies and just exit the complex to then go to the Lesnaya station and then to the vdnh, where the real challenge began. But this will be in the next episode, so make sure to like and subscribe to not miss that.